old is too young to have the talk, i.e. the sex talk? This conversation is one I've been having a lot within my network and desperately wanted to have here. Because in my opinion, it is one of the most important conversations adults need to have with children, as I believe it shapes how your child handles themselves around others, it builds their values-based muscle, it helps them make informed decisions about their bodies, relationships, and love. And frankly, it's what gets them out of trouble when needed. Recently, stories of underage children in seemingly consensual sexual acts have been making the rounds on social media, and a lot of adults have been in various states of shock, confusion, worry. Some have condemned other adults, and in some cases the children. But my biggest question has been, how old were you, the parent, when you had sex for the first time? Because frankly, nothing new is happening. Only difference there is social media has exposed and amplified everything. So shouldn't we as adults be realistic, sincere, empathetic, and honest? Shouldn't we, the custodians of the young, be properly guiding them and holding their hands through this journey so that they can make the right decisions and choices, instead of us forgetting it was this act that brought them into the world in the first place, and they too will follow the circle of life. Right, let me introduce Izehi Anuge. Izehi is a values-based educator, an author who pursues and lends her expertise in multiple areas of values-based learning. Izehi is the managing director at Shape a Child, an award recipient of AGIF, Lagos, Nigeria, and She Global Awards. She's also the author of Captain Excellence, a children's book series which focuses on triggering values-based consciousness in children and teenagers. Izehi also works with institutions to create values-based frameworks. Welcome, Izehi.
Thank you, Feran.
It is really, really good to have you here with me, and I'm sure we're going to have an enlightening conversation.
Absolutely.
So let's get right to it. What is the talk, and why is it important?
Okay, the talk is a talk that every parent must have with a child before puberty.
Before puberty?
Yes. It is the talk that every parent must have just as your child is approaching puberty.
Okay, let's break it down.
Okay.
We're talking about sex.
Yes.
The sex talk.
Yeah.
Okay. Before puberty.
Yes. Just as the child is getting into puberty, it's important that we start to have that conversation with children. Because you know what, you get to puberty, what's the next stage after puberty?
Your hormones.
Everything starts
Raging hormones.
Everything starts to kick in.
Yeah.
So if children are not introduced into this conversation, they're going to get confused, they're going to want to seek answers, and if you do not have the conversation with them, they will have it with someone that they can't trust.
And in this world, they will have your social media.
Absolutely.
And the many predators out there.
Absolutely. If you don't inform your children, someone else will.
Yeah, that is key. But I'm going to go back to before puberty.
Okay.
I personally think the talk should start from as little as 5 years old, even. Maybe even 3. It just changes as you go along. Because boys and girls, we have the same sensory nerves, no?
Yes, we do.
So they feel the things within different parts of their bodies, even as young as babies.
Okay, so I would say that for different stages in development of a child, there's sex-appropriate conversations that you should have.
Yes, definitely.
So that's what we call it, sex-appropriate conversations. Introduction to body parts, you know, because children are quite curious, and they could ask questions like, "Mommy, what's this?" You know, and at that age, when they start to get curious about body parts, I mean, rather than give these funny names, you know, because parents, it's an uncomfortable conversation.
It is an uncomfortable conversation.
As uncomfortable as it is, what is most funny about it is that it's the most realistic conversation, and no child is going to avoid the process.
Yes.
of
Cycle
that
of
conversation.
life.
It's a cycle of life. So when you start to introduce those body parts to children, call them what they are. Don't give them mimic names for them. Oh, that is the bouncy ball, you know, on the
birds and bees.
Exactly.
Call them exactly what they are.
Call them exactly as they are. Because
Yes.
guess what? They're going to find out about the names, the appropriate names for these
Yeah.
things, and start to wonder, okay, why was she hiding it? Is it not just this?
So
it's
demystify it.
Demystify it. It's important that you call it what it is. Have honest conversations, and that's where we talk about having a values-based framework in the home that promotes honesty and openness. You must be honest and you must be open. It's a conversation that you should be willing to have, understanding that it's part of life.
Yeah.
It's the reality. It is real. So be open to it and you know, identify body parts and call them what they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then before they hit puberty, you can then have a more robust conversation.
Yes.
So that they're better informed.
Absolutely. So there's just sexually age-appropriate conversations that you can have, depending on the developmental stage of that child.
That's where I was going to, because some children hit puberty at the age of 9.
Yes, some children actually do. 9, they've already. So you know, parents need to be conscious. They need to be aware, very, very aware and very conscious, and you know. Identify the children that will go into puberty, you know, early. Once they hit puberty, be open. Let's ensure that you have that open policy within your home where children feel free to come and have those conversations with you. So it's really, really important that it's a consistent conversation, not a one-off once in a while.
Consistency is key.
So it's like frequent, you know, just at different stages, introduce the child to something new. They ask you a question, be open and be honest about it. It is an education. It is education. So parents should look at it as an education structure within the home where they introduce children to things that they cannot avoid.
Very true. That's a key phrase. Things they cannot avoid.
It's unavoidable.
So I want to take us back.
Okay.
Did your parents have the talk with you?
Okay, so it's interesting. My parents had what they considered a relevant talk, which of course they couldn't avoid. You're going to see your period. And it's, you know, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on TV, so...
Please, we're having an honest, open conversation here because we need to really just break down all these myths.
Okay. All right, so I was told that blood would come out, right? And when blood comes out, if anything happens, you'll get pregnant.
If anything happens, so there's a missing link there.
Yes. So it was...
So what is the if anything?
I had no idea. I was really curious. I was like, okay, what could happen? That's what I was wondering. What could happen there?
Essentially could be if you fall down, you get pregnant.
What could happen? So I was told that because of course I know my mom knew that I was definitely going to get my period. That was something she couldn't avoid because it was going to be in front of her. So I was well prepared that, you know, I think at the age of 7, maybe 9, I was already told that, you know, I was eventually going to have, you know,
your
some
period
flow
and all of that.
And, you know, I shouldn't be afraid. But I should just know that at that time, if anything happens.
So you see, that is where our culture comes into it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's an uncomfortable conversation.
It is.
And it's not even a culture-based discomfort.
No.
It is an uncomfortable conversation, period.
Yeah.
But that's not telling you the in-between could potentially have put you in a lot of trouble.
I think I was ill prepared for that whole concept of sex. It was such a mystery in my home.
Like a lot of homes.
It was a mystery, you know. It was, we just never had the conversation. We never spoke about it. And I didn't know what, for a long time, a really, really long time, I did not know what could happen that would make someone, I don't know how I figured out that, you know, I don't know at what age I eventually figured out that, you know, it's when you actually man meet woman, then, you know, they consummate and then potentially you could get pregnant. I had no idea. And the danger of not sharing this with children is that when they hear it from someone else, they start to trust the person that they hear it from.
Very
and
true.
The person now takes advantage of them. If you come across a bad, you know, someone that has ulterior motives, what will happen is
that's what they call in sexual abuse, grooming the child.
Yes. So the child will start to trust okay, this person told me this. And what's funny, and why I go back to a values-based structure within the home with honesty and openness, is that if someone informs you wrongly about sex outside of the home and causes you to start to experiment on certain things when you're not meant to, if the child is not open, the child will not be, if you're not running an open home policy within your home, the child will not be able to come back and say,
this
so
happened,
and so
to
person
raise the
said
red
to
flag,
me
yes.
that I should do this. So, you know, the biggest trouble or the biggest red flag would be the gap between openness between the parents and secrecy between the child and a predator. That would be the biggest gap. Because if a child is being abused, the reason the abuse will keep going on is because the child cannot return back to the parents to have a conversation. And the funny thing about predators is that they're usually people that the parents would trust.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's really critical that so this conversation, it's not sudden. If you haven't created a structure in your home where there's an open policy, because the funny thing about abuse is that the people that abuse children, right, they're usually the closest to the family, more often than not. They're quite close.
Yeah, I'm just going to interrupt you quickly because there's something I've been saying a lot recently. Boys, a lot of boys, their first sexual encounter is between the age of 9 and 11.
Absolutely.
And in most cases is with a nanny, house help, auntie, or people like that. Yeah? The boy grows up and then says, yes, I started early.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole thing of, yes, I'm a man.
Yeah.
But in reality, what happened was sexual abuse.
He was abused, yes.
You know, it was pedophilia.
Yes, he was abused.
Yeah, so we need to be able to change beliefs and mindset. So my question to you is, when your parents, if the parents have different beliefs, different perspectives, different outlooks on life, how do they even navigate this conversation? Because they may be willing,
yes,
but because of their beliefs, perspectives, outlook, they may not be able to.
You see, the schools right now, they play a critical role in educating and re-educating and reinforming even parents right now. And, you know, because the schools, they stand in a place of authority, I think it's important that for when you gather the parents within the PTA structure and you start to have these conversations and encourage them to have these conversations with their children, I guess they will become a bit more open-minded about it. Now, not having it as a one-on-one, but having it first of all as a general conversation. And if parents with those beliefs feel quite uncomfortable about it, there should be an open forum where they know, okay, you can come back to us with questions so that we can inform you on the importance of having life skills information for your children, because it is really critical that no matter how we feel about a situation right now, it's important that we address it appropriately. So having an openness, having those conversations with the parents. Also, parents who are a bit, you know, restricted in their beliefs, who have a different set of beliefs, rather. If they feel uncomfortable having these conversations, they can actually seek the help of sex education experts.
Again, our culture. We don't even go to therapy or counseling, let alone sex education expert. Let's be realistic. You know, how do you actually tell a parent whose parents never told them, who the PTA people you're talking about are also parents themselves who feel uncomfortable having the conversation? This is not abroad where they have sex education normally. This is Africa. This is Nigeria. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's why I said within the PTA structure now, a parent goes to PTA meeting. You're going to address the whole parents that are sitting there within that space. So it's not a conversation they would say, I'm going to get up and walk out of. They will most likely object. I don't think this conversation is appropriate for us to be having with our children at this stage. And in that forum, there's now an opportunity for parents to speak for and against. This is why we should do it, this is why we shouldn't do it. Because if you come from a culture, you have a value system through which you operate your life generally, it's difficult to accept something different. However, when you're within a group, group of people, and you have the conversation, you will be open enough to say, this is why I do not agree with it. This is why I will resist this. And that is why, again, the schools, they play a critical role, as well as the churches. They play a critical role in having this conversation.
The religious houses, basically.
Religious houses, you know, those places of authority. It's important that we, they address these issues, because it is real. So those are the only structures today that can actually help parents start to change their mind and see things differently as regards, sex education and introducing children to sex education at the appropriate age.
Okay, so quickly, if the authorities you're talking about, they themselves are uncomfortable having the conversation, yeah? Is it possible for the parents to now say, you know what, hang on, there's a problem here, we need to address this thing, let's come together as a group of friends, we all hang out during the holidays, during Christmas, whatnot. Let's all come together and let's begin to have these conversations within ourselves. Is that a possibility?
I think we need to get, I think I'm quite realistic, and I accept that everybody will not be carried along on certain journeys. Some people will just not accept it, and we cannot force feed them.
No, we can't.
However, it's within that space. So if parents, we all decide that we're going to go out, we're going to hang out, and somebody says, I do not believe this. I do not, and I will not hang out with you. There's nothing we can do. We have to respect those people and allow them. So everybody will not be carried along on the journey, because they believe what they believe. I turned out right, so my child will turn out right.
That's exactly what a lot of people say. I turned out right, so
okay,
yes.
I'm fine, nothing happened to me.
But
so
the problem is they don't know about the trauma that that child is carrying around. So let me quickly ask you this, because we're running out of time. What is the consequence of not having this conversation?
There's so many things attached to sex education that right now we cannot afford to look at it as a taboo or a mythical topic. Rather, it's a necessary topic. Like I said earlier, it's an education. It is education now. When we don't tell children about this, they start to make wrong choices. They misunderstand sex versus love. They are not aware about what is private and what is public, what should be done, what should not be done, what is appropriate, self-belief, self-confidence, ability to connect with people. It's attached to so many of the essence of what we are as human beings, that it is such a risk not to have children learn about these things or interact with it first from the home or through a structured framework. Now it has to be structured, and the introduction is first from the home. You do not want
from mommy or daddy or both.
Mommy or, some homes, we have to be realistic again about how we are. Some mommies are more busy than some daddies are more busy. Both parents are both busy, but at least one parent should take it upon themselves as a couple, decide, I will have this conversation at this time with this child. You have with the boy. So if the woman is uncomfortable with having it with the male child, the father should take that on. And if
but mommy and daddy have to be aligned, though.
Oh yes, because a lot of parents don't agree, or they don't agree on the same things as far as introducing certain conversations to their children. They don't agree about the timing. No, the child is too young. We shouldn't have this conversation with them. However, I think every parent should understand that it is a risk to their child's ability to make informed decisions when they are faced with obstacles that surround sex, if they do not educate them first from the home. It is a huge risk. They need to be able to make wise choices concerning their bodies as they grow older. So it's a huge risk, just their inability to make the right choices.
Inability to make the right choices. As we round up, can you give me 3 next steps to be able to help us navigate moving forward?
Okay, so I think first of all, every parent should become aware.
Aware of what?
Aware of the environment, the happenings, the things that are happening. They need to be aware and become conscious about the fact that
they should stop living under a rock.
Yes, we should move out of the rock. Even if you want to remain under the rock, read about what's happening outside of the rock. But find a structure to make sure that you are aware, you're conscious. Once you become aware about what is really happening, inform yourself, then you now prepare yourself. get the information you need as much as possible so that you know what to tell your child when the
So
time
one,
comes.
awareness, two,
Preparation,
preparedness.
and finally engage. Be ready to engage with your child and be consistent with the information and be open with those conversations around
Engage,
sex.
be consistent, be open. Izehi, in the short time, I think we've tried to do justice to the topic. I really do hope that everybody has taken something away today and we can begin to change our mindset, break the myths, and really, really, truly equip our children for a better future. Because this conversation, like Izehi said, affects everything. Everything in its entirety, the quality of relationships, the ability for your child to make informed decisions, everything. So thank you so much for watching. Please stay with us for a few more minutes as we wrap up the show. Thank you so much, Izehi.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.